So the Ravens, I think, have quietly had one of the best off seasons. Again, not a lot, because they're already a very good team, one of the best teams in the league, but an absolutely steal of a trade in terms of getting Calais Campbell for just a 5th-round pick, and they signed him for a 2-year, $27 million deal. A great move for them. They also bring in Derek Wolfe as defensive depth and re-sign their own guys. Jimmy Smith and Matt Judon got the franchise tag, so shoring up that defense. And again, they don't need much, so they're drafting late in the first round. Where they could go, I think it's either going to be a receiver or a linebacker. There's a lot of linebacker depth at the end of the first round. Guys like Kenneth Murray, Zach Vaughn, or Patrick Queen could be a good fit there. And then receivers, there's a lot of them. Jalen Reagor, Laviska Shenault is somebody they could take a chance on if they want to risk his injury. And he's a very talented guy too. So that's, the Ravens don't need much. They need to hope Lamar Jackson can, obviously he's not going to super duplicate it, but he definitely...
Hold on 1 second.
Go ahead.
Niffin is on... He's on Instagram right now saying that the Cowboys signed Aldon Smith, and he's so excited. But
why?
Aldon Smith,
he hasn't been good in 4 years.
He's barely played in the NFL for the last 2 years. I mean, he was part of San Francisco, I think, last year.
Oh, well, he was with Oakland for a little while too. He was actually
barely
decent.
Played.
Yeah, he was decent in that 2015 season, and I think at the start of the 2016 season until he had another incident, and then he got cut again.
It's not a big deal, trust me, guys.
Yeah, I would not get overexcited about a guy who's now, I think, 31 years old, too, who's had off-field issues, to be the primary pass rusher.
I still love you, Niffin. I still love you.
To be the primary pass rusher that you want him to be. So.
But as far as the Cowboys are concerned, I mean, Aldon, I like some of the moves. I like Poe. I like HaHa Clinton-Dix. This move makes no sense. It was a cheap move where they're hoping to find a genie in a bottle, okay?
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know if that's going to be much of a genie. I think he'll be probably dropped by the end of OTAs. I don't think he's making the team. But go ahead.
Yeah, so basically to final up the Ravens, I think really receiver and linebacker is the only thing they need. Everything else on that team's really shored up. And they just got to hope that offense, that rushing attack, could duplicate what they did last year, because their defense is still very good and has been very consistent for a while. So from the Ravens to the Bengals obviously have the number 1 overall pick. It seems very likely they're going to take Joe Burrow. So how do they build up the rest of the team? What they need really badly is offensive line and linebacker, and they could also, again, use some middle-of-the-field defense as well. They bring in Trey Waynes, Mackenzie Alexander to help their cornerback depth, which, again, it's fine, but, again, they already had a lot of cornerback depth already. Their pass defense was actually top 10 in the league last year, so that's not really an issue for them. They need to work on the run defense. DJ Reader, I think they overpaid, 4-year, $53 million contract. He had a good year last year, but still has been just an average nose tackle beyond that. And then they franchise tagged AJ Green. We'll see what happens with him. In terms of the draft, obviously, quarterback going to be their first pick, and then after that, it's all offensive line and linebacker, I think, for them. Same prospects are listed for the Ravens, could be a good option for them. And then if they want to get a tackle, a guy, Prince Wonoko, I always forget his name, out of Auburn, could be a good pick in the second round if that's where they want to go. And then after that, offensive line and linebacker. The Browns, they've had a very eventful offseason. Whether it's
always good, but these players can't produce anything. So.
Yeah, they've had a lot of interesting signings, a lot of boomer bust signings. Austin Hooper's an interesting one who I think they overpaid for one great year. Plus, again, they didn't really need a tight end. He blocks better than Njoku, fine, but they still have offensive line issues that they're not going to be able to solve with just adding another blocking tight end, especially if they want to utilize their receiving depth and do more spread formations. Jack Conklin's obviously the big signing for them. That's the one they needed, and that's a nice deal for them. In terms of their defensive signings, a lot of boomer bust guys. Carl Joseph, nice player, but again, he's been up and down in coverage. Andrew Sendejo, I don't like at all. 1 year, $2.25 million. Adrian Claiborne, a pass rusher. Kind of a streaky guy, too. And Kevin Johnson, he's good when healthy, but we'll see. Kareem Hunt, they also bring back as well to help out that running game. So that's a streaky thing. In terms of the draft for the Browns, I would probably do another offensive lineman, but they could go defensive line in the draft, too. A guy like Derek Brown or Javon Kinlaw could be an option for them if they don't go offensive line. Or they could even go linebacker, too. They lost Joe Schobert and Christian Kirksey in free agency. So that's another direction they could go into. They'd probably do that in the second round, though. And then the Steelers. I mean, the Steelers are a team that they did a lot better than people thought last year. Their defense was fantastic. Will be tough for them to duplicate it again. When it comes to free agency, they lost Javon Hargrave. They franchise tagged Bud Dupree, who's been a solid pass rusher. Not great, but a solid pass rusher. And they bring in Eric Ebron Beyond that, not really much. In terms of the draft for them, probably keep bolstering up their secondary. That could definitely help. They don't have a first-round pick because they traded for Minkah Fitzpatrick, but again, with their second and third-round picks, bolstering up their secondary, maybe more receiving depth. Could they get the quarterback of the future? We don't know, but it's going to be hard without a first-round pick, so they might have to stick with Ben Roethlisberger and Mason Rudolph for now. So they'll probably just draft a lot of defense, maybe some offensive line because they're getting a little older too. But again, it's not going to be major moves for the Steelers right now just because they don't have a first-round pick.
Well, my first team is the Baltimore Ravens, and they added Calais Campbell, who I think is one of the best pass rushers, one of the veteran pass rushers in the last couple of years that has produced enough sacks that you make a move like that. You gave up a fifth-round draft pick. It was a steal. I don't understand what the Jaguars are trying to do. I guess trying to rebuild their organization, but for what? This is a team that was a championship competitive team for the last couple of years, and now all of a sudden they're trying to throw away players. They traded away Nick Foles. They brought him in the offseason last year. They gave him a 3-year deal. They sent him over there to Chicago. It makes absolutely no sense what they were doing. I like what Baltimore did this offseason. They haven't done much. They lost a couple of players. They added some good pieces to help them. I think what Baltimore needs to do this offseason is add another wide receiver. I think it gives them more weapons. They have Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown has proven himself this year to be a very good and viable offensive player. They need another wide receiver. They need another explosive slot receiver, maybe a guy that can go on the other side of the field that can help take off pressure from Hollywood Brown. That's what I think Baltimore needs to do. They've always had good running game. They've always had a good defense, and they have great coaching. So Baltimore needs to add another wide receiver to that tandem to give them more variety out in the open field.
And they also got an extra third-round pick, I think, and a fourth-round pick in the deal they traded Hayden Hurst to the Atlanta Falcons for, which I think they absolutely robbed the Falcons.
Nope. Pittsburgh Steelers. I was very interested in what Pittsburgh was going to do this offseason. They haven't done much. I mean, bring up the Pittsburgh Steelers over there. I haven't heard a lot from the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, they're normally a team that goes homegrown.
They brought Eric Ebron in, who is going to help Ben Roethlisberger because Ben Roethlisberger likes to throw to tight ends. They signed their tight end last year. He didn't have as good Vance McDonald, who really didn't have a great year this year. He had a great year the year before. They gave him his contract, and they decided to drop their other tight end. Now they're bringing Eric Ebron, who had a sensational season the last couple of years over there in Indianapolis. But is this the Eric Ebron that we've seen in the last couple of years? That's going to be the question. I don't know if he's going to be that type of player.
He's a 1-2 year wonder now.
They brought in Derek Watt. Obviously, you know why they brought in Derek Watt. He's what's his name again?
TJ Watt.
TJ Watt's brother. He's not much of anything. He's just over there to help TJ Watt, grow and make TJ Watt happy over there. So that wasn't a great move. Pittsburgh didn't do anything. What Pittsburgh needs to do in the draft this year, well, they need another wide receiver. They really do. And I know they've always been a team that can find wide receivers in the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round. They have one wide receiver and a bunch of guys that you can't depend on. They need to add that other explosive wide receiver on the outside. Also, even though they added Minkah Fitzpatrick in a trade in the middle of the season, they need to add more corners. They need more secondary. That's been a problem for them year in and year out, and that's been a problem against teams like the Patriots, teams that know how to throw the ball against them. That's been the problem. They always play zone against the Patriots, and they get their butts whipped. So they need to add some corners. That's something that they need to look at.
And Joe Hayden's, 32 years old now or something like that? So he might regress where he may have be resorted to a number 2 corner.
I think he's really a number 3 corner. I don't even think he's any good anymore. The Cleveland Browns. Well, they added a great offensive lineman who is going to be in, to me, drown land because everybody that goes over there drowns. I love Conklin. Jack Conklin's one of the best underrated right tackles, which they're going to shift to the left tackle position. We don't know what he can do on the left tackle because he's been a right tackle since he's come into the league. Now, I do believe his arms are smaller than most left tackles in the league, but he's strong. His ability to use his speed and his agility and his technique, I think he's going to fit very, very well over there with the Browns. But the Browns have had problems year in and year out with some of the players that they brought in. Odell Beckham, they brought him in the offseason. They thought they were going to be an explosive team. They're not the same explosive team they were before Odell Beckham was there. They brought in Kareem Hunt. He came in. He's not the same player he was when he came from Kansas City. Now, Kareem Hunt missed half the season, so we don't know what Kareem Hunt is until he plays a full year. But this is a team that's had problems offensively putting up points on the board this year. So what do they need to do in the this year in the draft? Here's what they need to do in the draft. And they made some good moves. B.J. Goodson, they added Austin Hooper, a good tight end, adding to their tight end. Really, they have a lot of depth in the tight end position. But they haven't added that player that's going to change their defense. And I think secondary is the number one target. Now, I'm not talking, they've got two good secondary players that fell off last year. They drafted a good secondary player in the second or third round.
Greedy Williams, yep.
And he had a bad season.
No, he had a good season. He was just always hurt.
He didn't have a good season. He barely played. He didn't have a good season. And I'm not going to bet on him. That's for sure. So I think Cleveland needs to look at that. I think they need to add running back. They need to add some backup running back firepower, because I don't know if Kareem Hunt is still going to be with them. He hasn't signed with them. So we don't even know if they're going to bring back Kareem Hunt. So they're going to need to add a secondary backup running back that can help them out on the other half. But that's where I think Cleveland needs to go. Cincinnati is going after Burrows. Unless they trade out of that pick, if they don't get Burrows, they're going to get Herbert or they're going to get Tua. They're going to get one of those guys. They're going to bring in a franchise quarterback. They added some pieces. They decided to bring in bring up Cincinnati right over there.
Right there.
Oh, yeah, there it is. They brought A.J. Green back because Burrows wanted to play with A.J. Green. He grew up in the Cincinnati area, Burrows. So this is something that he wants to do. He wants to go to Cincinnati and help them develop some of these players. A.J. Green's an old player. I'm very surprised that they franchised him. He's going to get paid $17 million. I still think Cincinnati will trade him after the draft, after they decide to look for a number one wide receiver. That's where Cincinnati needs to go this year. They need to go. I'm sorry?
They might trade him right in the draft. They might try to get a pick that's in the draft.
I think that and they brought in Trey Waynes, who is a good player, is a good corner.
He's number 2 corner.
Yeah, but he's not a great corner.
No.
I think what they need to do, they need to bring in a top wide receiver. And there's a lot of teams in this division that need wide receiving help, and they're one of them. They don't have a number one wide receiver. They have a bunch of number 2s. And A.J. Green, who is a number 1, is an old number 1 who's more like a number 2 now. So they need to bring in a number 1 guy. I could see them moving up. You know, they're going to draft a quarterback. I could see them moving up from the second to the first round and getting the wide receiver that they want, like a Rupp or something like that. Or they wait in the second round. There's a lot of good quality wide receivers in the second round, and they can land a wide receiver in the second round.
That's what I think they'll do, because they also need offensive line really badly, too. And there's a good. If they're going to trade up, I think it would be for a tackle.
And by the way, Niffin, your thoughts on hopefully the Cowboys landing Jamal Adams?
Good one.
That's not going to happen. First of all, they don't have enough money to pay him. They just paid Amari Cooper $100 million. 5 years, $100 million, second highest paid wide receiver in the league. He's not even close to the second best wide receiver in football. And you think they're going to get Jamal Adams? They're talking about giving Dak Prescott $35 million a year. Jamal Adams? Not a chance.
Jamal Adams is closer to number 2 at his position than Amari Cooper is at his.
Jamal Adams is probably the best safety in football. And you think the Jets are just going to let him go and they're going to give him $100 million? It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Jamal Adams is not going to the Cowboys. I'm sure he wants to be a Cowboy. He grew up a Cowboy fan. He's not going to the Cowboys. And I think he's going to be a Jet. I think the Jets are going to give him an extension. He's going to get his money. But Cincinnati needs a wide receiver. Expect Cincinnati to land a big-time wide receiver in this year's draft.